The President of the United States in that moment was receiving counsel from attorneys who were telling him, as the Bible says, what his itching ears wanted to hear. But the President was receiving terrible advice from people who not only shouldn't have been in the Oval Office, they shouldn't have been let on the White House grounds.
Wow. Mike Pence, who was not much of a lawyer ever, a horrible thing to say about some of the best attorneys this country has ever produced, including Rudy Giuliani, America's mayor, former third highest ranking official in the Reagan Justice Department, and one of the most celebrated U.S. attorneys in the Department of Justice's history. Welcome back, Mr. Mayor, and I've been dying to get your take on what Mike Pence has been saying about you and some of your peers during that time. He's talking about post-election. I have my thoughts. I think he's reprehensible, but, sir, he was talking about you.
Well, I think he was talking about the lawyers I fired.
No, actually, he says, Mr. Mayor, he actually, in the whole clip, he says the lawyers who got fired, and he implies that Barr and some of the other ones, they were the good ones. They were the good ones. And it was...
Barr was hiding the hard drive for a year and a half, and he's one of the good ones. He covered up one of the most important pieces of evidence in American history. I mean, Barr had the hard drive at a time in which he could have intervened and stopped the impeachment. He could have let the American people know that they were electing a crook to public office. He hid that. His Justice Department had the hard drive for a year. And now, of course, we're finding out after the election is over what the Attorney General hid from us. Didn't even bother to investigate. I mean, he left a woman in Ukraine who was under threat of death, who could open up, she said, bank accounts of Joe Biden's. Never even interviewed her. I mean, Barr's got a lot to answer for. He should really keep his mouth shut. But in any event, the reality is that Mike Pence is a very bitter man. And I wouldn't pay an awful lot of attention to him. Bitter men make very, very bad, say very loose things that they don't really know what they're talking about. For example, Professor Eastland was one of the foremost scholars on the Constitution, dean of a law school. He's never done a damn thing as a lawyer. I mean, he's been a politician all his life.
And in this environment, you can say that about a fine lawyer. If you say it about a Trump lawyer, you can call him a crank, and the media will eat it up. Let's go through Mr. Eastman's credentials. We've already mentioned briefly just some of yours, but Professor Eastman, who has been maligned so unfairly throughout all of this. First of all, well, look at that, 17 cases at the Supreme Court. Moving on next, he's been published just about everywhere. His work has appeared everywhere, original scholarly work in newspapers, also in magazines and scholarly journals. And I didn't know this until actually today. He clerked for Judge Ludig and Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas. Now, he is light years ahead of Mike Pence, who I think went to McKinney Upstairs College of Law that nobody knows.
He's basically working with twice the IQ of Mike. I mean, actually, it was better to talk to Mike's wife about things than Mike. She was with him all the time. I never saw the guy without his wife around. And at one point, when I wanted to talk to him about this, I was frustrated, and I said, well, let me talk to his wife. She makes the decisions.
Well, it's a very unfair and I would say fake dialogue that has taken hold, that somehow those lawyers, well, you and your peers were a danger to democracy, and Mike Pence does not have the expertise. And can you do me a favor, explain what you thought Mike Pence, how he had the authority to possibly send the electoral votes back to state capitals?
Under the Constitution, the state legislature is the final arbiter of who the electors are. Article 2, Section 2, Clause 3 or 4 of the Constitution says that it'll be determined by the state legislatures as to who the electors are. The Supreme Court has held in 1893 and then again repeated it in Bush v. Gore that power is plenary, and they can reverse anything anyone has done if they believe it's been done fraudulently or incorrectly. So if the state legislature had problems with the vote, they had a right to review it under the Constitution and under their exclusive power to determine the electors. Mike Pence didn't have the ability to decide who was elected. He had the ability to grant the request of 4 different state legislatures that asked that the vote be recalculated, because they felt that the numbers that had been sent to the Congress were incorrect and inaccurate, and they hadn't been counted yet.
And his book is out, and he's telling he's not telling the complete story. And maybe this is his capacity, but you said something. He's bitter. Why do you think he's bitter?
Well, I mean, it all ended very badly for him. His political career is basically over. I mean, who would trust him? I mean, here he is in this bitter dispute with the man who made him vice president. He never would have been vice president. And, you know, people will use you, but when you're disloyal, they don't really like you.
And, you know, there's
this,
the fake news, and a hell of a lot of lawyers on the left have somehow, there's only one way to view the law. I mean, there's the Supreme Court, and the most talented lawyers in the world disagree 180 degrees all the time. There isn't one way. There is not one way necessarily. We have to debate this stuff. We have to discuss it, and you can have disagreements about the Constitution, right?
Of course you can. And Mike doesn't realize that the people that are being nice to him now, I mean, he was the crazy right winger. To them, he'll be the crazy right winger again once they have used him. And they've used him really, really well, because he doesn't have that basic strength of character that you have to be president.
That you have. And maybe that ship has sailed, but maybe it hasn't. Mr. Mayor, thank you very much once again.
Thank you.
Check out, by the way, everybody should go to...
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving to you. And check out Rudy Giuliani's website, Rudy Giuliani CS. Common sense, right? There it is. The CS.
RudyGiulianiCS.com.
I love it. RudyGiulianiCS.com for the common sense that he has, that too few people have, actually. Too few. We'll be back. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Greg.